Talking about the small businesses, like what are the lessons from South Korea, Singapore that we can implement in India to save our businesses? There are certain examples that they have set in the past
Right.
few months. Yeah.
Right. So South Korea and Singapore have demonstrated how technology and connectedness can be positively used to combat the crisis, the pandemic. So the benefits to businesses in those countries have accrued through the channel of the mitigation of the health crisis. So it's really
Yes.
important to understand how they have managed the pandemic to then appreciate what it means for businesses. Let me use the example of South Korea, about which I know a couple of things. It's a good example of policy success in the case of COVID-19. So South Korea has very high penetration of digital technology, mostly afforded by the almost universal access to and ownership of smartphone technology.
Yes.
What that means is that there's an unprecedented, it's a universal level of interconnectedness that could
Yes.
be used. It's
Yes.
easier to get information to them, to receive information from them, right? And getting information to individuals is important because it shapes precautionary measures, and you can pass information quickly and efficiently in a personal manner.
Yes.
And receiving information is important because then you can use that information to manage the pandemic. So there are some case studies that tell us about the use of smartphone technology leveraged for contact tracing to identify those who are infected.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, to then trace, because there's a digital footprint, to trace those they have been in contact with
Yes.
and manage the pandemic. I think
Yes.
this experience is very similar in Singapore, where, again, digital technologies of a different nature was used to contact trace, and that information was digital footprint of
Yes.
credit card transactions or digital payments. Let's just characterize them that way. Digital
Yes.
payments, including ATM transactions, credit cards, online payments, so that one can then paint a picture going back a couple of weeks of how an individual has been associated with other individuals, identifying vulnerabilities of the population, so tracing them, isolating them, and managing the solution. So the
Yes.
benefits to businesses in those economies have been afforded by efficient management of the problem. Let me also add that in both the economies, Singapore and South Africa, testing, efficient, easily accessible testing is a
Testing.
common feature. And I
Yes.
think these are lessons to be learned for several other economies, that if we are to overcome the challenges of the pandemic, these are some lessons that we could leverage. So ICT technologies, leveraging them to the extent that we can, recognizing the limitations of them, because all
Yes.
economies do not have near universal smartphone penetration. And second, the,
Yeah.
the the experience around testing.
Testing. Yes. As fast as we can do. Yes.